My name is Martin James, and my company is Slide Ridge Honey, and we're based out of Mendon, Utah. Utah State University sends around this pamphlet every year of extended learning classes. And I was 8 years old, and I says, Mom, I gotta go. My mom took me up there. She had no interest in this, but she did it for me. So anyway, I took the class, I did all the assignments, and that's when I started beekeeping. And that year, Del Monte came in, and with their aerial sprayers, my bees all died. So now I go into my teens, and I started floor covering construction and did all that. And so met my wife, we dated. So now I'm in my like 26, 27, 28. And we go camping with my wife. So this swarm of wild bees lands in the campground. And the camp directors, go back, there's wild bees, save yourselves, you know. And I says, oh, really? And I've never told my wife I was a beekeeper, never told her about the class. I said, go, let's go look. And so, yeah, sure enough, there was this swarm that was on a little tree, and it was all draped over, and there was this heart-shaped bees. And so the kids were kind of following me, and I says, look, you know, it's a baby beehive. They're very docile. They're not aggressive whatsoever. It's like a baby calf. And so you can actually stick your hand, and I stuck my hand right in it. And I says, they're full of honey, because that's their only food store. So it's like after Thanksgiving dinner, your bellies are full, it's really hard to reach your shoes to tie them. Well, a bee has to bend its thorax to sting you like this. Well, it's full of honey, so it really has a hard time bending to sting you. So they don't want to start anything, they're fully exposed. So, long story short, I collected that beehive. And that hive, I produced 150 pounds of honey off of it that year. So at that point, I thought, you know, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. That was 15 years ago. So now it's built into a really nice family business. We try to run about 3,000 colonies. 8% of the business is honey. Pollination of agricultural crops is about 90% of what we do. So there's 156 different agricultural crops that have to be commercially pollinated. We work closely with like Johnson Family Farms for tomatoes and all kinds of vegetables that we pollinate. Thane Taggy's fruits. And we talked one afternoon, he says, Martin, he says, my fruit is bigger and it's healthier and it's better, but he says the quality, the flavor of it is 10 times. So when you have a watermelon and it doesn't get pollinated properly, it looks like a bee stung it. It's not formed, it's not round. Each one of those little seeds in there have to be pollinated. A raspberry, they don't form properly unless they're pollinated. Each one of those little bumps on there is a seed and it has to be pollinated. But when it gets full pollination, the flavor is remarkably different. You get a lot bigger fruit, it's redder, it's the good stuff. So does a glass of milk have to be pollinated? The alfalfa has to be pollinated to feed the cow to produce the milk. So yeah, the pollination, it might be 1 bite out of 3, but it affects everything else. You're not gonna get hamburger, you're not gonna get steaks, you're not gonna, it all has to come back to the bee. And as a universe, I would say, and it's proven that the bee is probably the most important insect that we carry today. Now in Utah, there's 2,600 different types of pollinators, but they're localized and they don't produce enough or pollinate enough to pollinate the agricultural crops. The orchard that I go in on in California is like 28,000 acres of producing almonds. I'm only one of about 30 beekeepers that go in to pollinate this. They put 2 hives per acre. So I can only pollinate about 6,000 acres of this total orchard. Every day is different. I don't really have a set schedule every day. Springtime, we're making a lot of baby beehives. You see the nooks. We're preparing bees. We also sell bees as a product. Bees, you lose 30% of them every year. So you have to make increase to replenish your dead bees. We have queens coming in. So this time of year, it has to be about 70 degrees to mate a queen. And a queen has to actually fly, and they're chased and to mate and then come back. They won't fly unless it's about 70 degrees or warmer with no wind. And so we buy queens from other regions, California, where they have really good spring weather, to make those queens. So we've got queen banks over there, and those queens are going in. It takes a frame of honey, a frame of pollen to produce a frame of brood. We want that done by about May 15th or so, and then we go into another one where we're just feeding the bees, growing them, and then we start setting honey supers, hopefully by the 1st of June. Our honey production months are June, July, and August. The end of August, we'll start pulling the honey crop off. It goes to the warehouse to be extracted and bottled and send out to consumers. And then we get the bees ready for the winter. So that starts happening in September and October. All the bees have to be pulled out of the mountains. We have an indoor wintering facility that is held at 41 degrees exactly. And then the bees are stored in there until the last week of January. When we start the year over again, we ship everything to California for pollination. It's like, I tell people it's like working with horses. People love horses, right? Well, you know not to walk up behind a horse and poke it in the butt, because you're going to get kicked, right? Well, there's things about honeybees that they're going to talk to, you know, the bees are actually telling you and giving you signals right now. They're peeing you in the back of the head. Well, you're too close. You know, walk away. And if you turn and walk away, they won't bother you. I usually come out about 6:30 as the sun's coming up and walk through and clean up stuff and pick up garbage and, you know, kind of sort the day out of what's going to happen, which bees I want worked. And it's probably my safe place. There's a connection with the rhythm of the seasons. The honey is harvested. Once it's capped and sealed, then we drive the bees off of it. Normally we just use a brush and sweep it off. We have two markets for honey. The first one is extracted honey. The other one is we pull the frames out and sweep them off, and they're packaged just like that. They go nationwide, and it's combed honey. They sit on a buffet type of deal with meats and cheeses and everything around it. And so when you come through the line, you just take it and scrape off a piece of the honeycomb and put it on your steak or whatever your plate, and it's wonderful. And a lot of our honey gets sold that way. The extracted honey are the frames that aren't quite perfect, that aren't picture perfect to sit on a buffet. So those are extracted, and that honey is bottled. Honey is there's nothing added to it. You can take a spoon over to the hive and take a bite of it right then. It's the most purest natural food there is. So there's all these different things that come from the beehive. There's thousands of different products. How I learned most of this was reading in books. Everything that's been done is in books. And read them and then go from there. Call a local beekeeper. There's local clubs. In Cache Valley, everywhere I know there's a local club. You will find retired guys that absolutely have the passion and the time to teach beekeeping. And I think it's a great learning tool besides it ties you to nature. All of a sudden you start thinking, oh, wait a minute, you know, what is the chemical use? Why are the bees dying? There's a huge problem with honeybees, which is going to affect our food chain. God gave us this world, and we get to use it to the best of our ability. But we're stewards of this world for the next generation also, so we have to watch what we're doing. What are you going to do with your world, and how are you going to leave it for the next generation?